Hey guys, Gary here, back to talk to you about Axure for a little bit. As a context, right, Axure is a wireframing and prototyping tool that's been around for quite a long time. I feel like a lot of people and companies have discounted it to where it's not really relevant anymore. At least on resumes or job postings, I don't see it anywhere near as much. It's all Sketch, XD, Figma, Framer, now soon to be Framer X. I still prefer Framer Studio, but there's a whole nother video on that you can watch. So let's talk about Axure because they just came out with the Axure RP9 beta. And the question is this going to bring it back into contention with the new young guns on the street, or is Axure still going to be relegated to the back of the mind of most designers out there? A little bit of context first. So my team and I have been pretty big fans of Axure for at least 5-6 years now. It for a long time was our primary design tool. I'll get into some of those reasons why it was the primary tool in a second here. But to give you a little bit of context on our background, we got so deep into it and it was so valuable to us that we started making our own widget libraries. Those of you who know Axure will understand what that means. Those of you that don't, widget libraries are Axure's version of symbols in Sketch, is the closest I can call it. Basically, they're widgets, so you can make a library, share them amongst the team, drag and drop them. It's great. You can do a whole bunch of things with them. So we started making our own libraries because we found there weren't really any good mobile development ones out there, which is all we were doing. We were doing iOS and Android design. Primary iOS to start, iPad and then iPhone for enterprise clients. And then Android, transitioned to as most of the enterprise industry went away from iOS and went towards Android. Again, we can get into the reasons why. So we made our own widget libraries is the point I'm getting to. We threw them up on a site we call UX Tool Time. To date, it's had, I need to check the numbers. I'll put the actual number on the screen. But it's got a lot of downloads. Like we average probably close to 1,000 downloads a week, and it's been up for a few years now. I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on it because I don't have statistics on anything else, but I'm pretty sure we're one of the largest widget library providers of free widget libraries. That's the key part. We're giving these away completely free. There's not even a donation button. We literally just said, hey, we built this for us. Let's get it out there for the rest of the industry to use, and people have been using it. They're also on GitHub, so you can take and fork them, do whatever you want with them. Yeah, so all that being said, we went down the Axure rabbit hole, and it was really powerful for us. And some of the main reasons we used Axure, right? We were having team projects where we'd have 2 to 3 designers working on a client project. And Axure, if you go with the team edition, has a built-in source control. Well, I shouldn't say source control, but built-in page management where you have to check pages out, check pages in. And it's really useful when you've got a team working on one file because you got multiple people working on the file without running into overwriting and problems like that. You can check it into SVN, so it's stored in the cloud. Now they have Axure Cloud that hosts the files for you, which is even nicer. But right, so that's one of the reasons. Second reason, because we built our own widget libraries, we were able to speed up our design process immensely because we had all the main components we'd use where we can drag and drop them. Again, a la design libraries that everybody is so up on is, the new buzzword is design systems. Well, heck, if you go back, we've been doing that for a while, but the idea was drag and drop things. The third was, the reason we used it a lot was repeaters and the logic and interactions you can do. So I equate it to Axure at its heart is it's a mix between Sketch where you can lay screens out, a mix between Framer and like InVision Studio where you can, click on certain items, give them links and whatnot. But it lets you do a little bit more with the logic than, say, InVision or, say, Sketch prototyping. Closer to the depth that you can get with Framer, but without writing code. Right, so they call it a case builder, and you add interaction points of on click, do this. If the text on a widget equals this, do that. So you can add logic and all kinds of stuff. And we had crazy amounts of things going on. We once built a prototype that I don't recommend doing this, but the client wanted it. Again, really don't recommend doing this. But it was probably a couple 100-page desktop app prototype that, because the client was behind on their project, they showed off the prototype as if it was an actual app running, because we'd added enough logic to it that you could literally click through the workflows, and when you'd make choices, it would have impact later on. So we built our own choose your own adventure for them, and they ran with it. I don't advise doing that because it led them into problems. We did advise them not to, but they made their choice. Story for a different time. We'll do a story time video at some point and just talk about client projects. So now we get to modern day though, and as we're doing projects, we realize that Axure is falling behind a little bit, specifically in design specs. Axure has a really nice documentation piece where you can output the documentation, but at least in our usage, and again, because we were pretty deep into it, I'm willing to bet there aren't going to be that many casual teams that got into the documentation as much as we did, and we still couldn't get it to work for us in the way we needed, because we needed an actual design spec where an engineer could look at it and go, here's my size, here's all the little details, right? Auto-generated. Enter Zeppelin, right? That's why we started to switch ways. We started to move into Sketch and then use Zeppelin to do the design spec, and it started to work really nicely and really well. And then from there with Zeppelin, we're like, oh, we really miss how deep we could get on interactions in Axure. How can we do this? So then there's Framer. And yeah, there's a little bit of a learning curve with Framer Studio, as they're calling it, Framer Classic, as they're saying now. But because it's CoffeeScript, and because we all the people on my team had a little bit of a web background, it wasn't that much of a learning curve. It was just messing with it a bit and playing with it and having some fun. So now we went down the Framer path in conjunction with Sketch. We actually even then transitioned to where most of our prototypes we were doing just straight code in Framer, because that's where we saw value. So enter Axure RP9. All right, there's RP8 that came out that was nice, but still didn't match up, if you will. It still kind of felt like it was in between, where it didn't do the stuff that Sketch does as well as Sketch does it. It didn't do the stuff that Framer does as well as Framer does it. It just kind of was there. So RP9, I've got the beta. I've played around with it a little bit. I'm going to put a little video playing here that you can see, and it's just me messing around with it, doing nothing fancy, just trying to understand the interface changes, trying to learn how they moved things, because they moved quite a few things around. One of the biggest changes they did is they moved the layers, which were in the lower right-hand part of the interface, now to be in the top left-hand part of the interface, where before it had just been your kind of sitemap, your page outline. Now there are tabs in that where you go from page outline to the individual. Initial reaction to that was not exactly pleasant. I think I need to use it a bit more to really get kind of comfortable with the new part of the layout, but my gut reaction as a longtime user was, whoa, where is the stuff I'm looking for? The next thing they did, which this I do really like, is they moved the interaction designer to being an inline thing in one of the panels. So what I mean, before, when you wanted to add an interaction, you would, from the right-hand panel, you'd select the on-click event, and then it would pop up this pop-up in the middle, and that's where you'd build what's actually happening, where it's going when you click, or what panel states are changing, or what information you're adding to your repeater, stuff like that. Now they made that so that's all inline in the panel, so you don't have the pop-up, so you can click on things, see all the different steps, change them, which that's a nice addition, because it makes it easier in some respects. In some respects, it makes it a little bit more confusing just until you get used to it. So I think if you're a new user, it'll probably be a much better experience for you. And then the last major thing, right? There's performance tweaks. I get that. They're under the hood. They're improving SVG. They're making all these nice little tweaks. They'll all feel like incremental changes. The next change that they are really trying to do is the copy from Sketch. So it's a Sketch plugin where if you install it, there's only copy all artboards and then copy selection as the two things in the plugin. And it converts Sketch into something that Axure can read, paste it into Axure, and then away you go. My playing with it is that it's fairly functional. I haven't really run into any problems. I haven't really put it through its paces yet of trying to break the plugin. We'll get to that on a client project, and then, well, as you know, dog food it with clients. Anyway, so RP9, my opinion of it is that it's a nice incremental update, but I don't think it's going to be enough to win over the Sketch folks to come back to it, even with the Sketch to Axure plugin. Unless somebody really needs the level of depth that you can go with interactions in Axure, Sketch can kind of handle everything, especially now with the simple prototyping there, the wireframes, the flows. And I don't think it's going to win over the Framer folks. They might get some of the people that are converting from Framer Classic now that Framer X has taken over and kind of changed the Framer mindset. But as much as I want to say I think this is the move that Axure needs to make, I don't know where Axure goes from here, because it's got all these little pieces that kind of fit together, but everyone else is doing a smaller piece better, is where it kind of comes up for me, is that Axure has a lot of things, so you can use one program to do it versus using a couple other programs that will do each individual piece better. Yeah, I'm gonna play with it. I'm gonna see where it goes through this beta. Hopefully, as the beta progresses, right, some more features or new things get added. I really hope that Axure does something awesome with this, because, like I said, I got my Axure shirt. I've used it, defended it, but 9 is not enough to get my team to come back from our Sketch and Framer workflow. At the end of the day, that's where it's at, because for us, speed of which we can do things, level of detail we can get to, level of fidelity in the interactions and control you have over the animation in the interaction, and how easy it is to hand off to development. Those are kind of the big things that we look for in prototyping tools. And right now, between Sketch and Framer, it's a much quicker, easier handoff to development. We have more control over the animation interaction with a little bit steeper learning curve. Totally acceptable in my mind, but know this there. And then you have better pixel perfect control in Sketch, especially now with symbols and being able to do overrides in that. The widget library function, honestly, it feels a little bit more clunky compared to how Sketch is doing it. A little bit harder to use. That's one of those things I will say, a major change in 9 actually over 8. In 9, when you double click to go into what they call a dynamic panel or a repeater, basically think group is a good way of putting it. It's a grouping, but it's actually like a grouping that can have multiple states. When you go into it, it now just shows it all in one window. You have to actually see this yourself and be a user to really get what I'm saying. But in Axure 8, what it would do is when you double click on it, it would open it in a new tab. So up on the top of the interface, you've got these tabs of your page, the different elements that might be open, and you're kind of jumping back and forth through them. Now they changed that so that when you double click in, it opens more like how Illustrator does groups, is probably the closest I can do, is where it goes into like an isolation mode where you can still see kind of things, but it's isolated. Again, the more I use this, maybe I'll warm up to that, but at least on the initial, it took me a lot longer to figure out how to do things, and the transition was actually a lot steeper and harder than I thought it was going to be. I thought I was just going to jump into 9 and it's going to be like, woot, new features, this is awesome. But I actually felt kind of lost. So that's where I'm at with Axure 9. I think it's a good incremental update. I'm curious to see where it goes. We're going to keep an eye on it just because we're so familiar with it. We probably should update those Axure widgets just because enough of the community is using them right now. I feel like I want to keep providing that to the community and really keep that resource out there, because there really aren't a whole lot of good free resources for Axure. But as the mainstay on my team, as far, the main design tool on our team, Axure 9 is not it. I think we're still going to be sticking to Sketch for like our quick mock-ups, and then Framer Classic for our more in-depth prototypes. I'll do a few more videos probably talking about that, but that's Axure 9. If you guys want, leave it in the comments. Let me know any other tools that you'd specifically like to hear my opinion on. More than likely, I've looked at them and evaluated them and made a decision based on my specific enterprise design use case. I want to stress that enough. Where the work that my team does is very specific. We're kind of more in a niche, and because of the things that we have to deal with as we're working, we've come up with a very specialized workflow for us that lets us deliver very quickly for our clients in sometimes situations where delivering quick is not normal or possible for most people. So that being said, anyway, thank you guys. Links to videos, because that's what YouTube stuff does. If you want to see more, just let me know, and we'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.